it's a start. I mean, maybe you're aiming for a particularly minimal jail cell or something, but it's a good start. Good attempt at some texturing there. Very well done. What was that strange alert I heard there a second ago? Anybody know? Anybody hear it? Oh, well, let's continue. Yes, so I'm going to try and fly through this because I'm just looking to see if there's any pointers that I can share. So, you know, the idea of using contrast is a really good one. So this could maybe do with a bit more contrast. It's a little bit uniform as well. I mean, it's a really good attempt, Thomas. I imagine this is pretty intense and is possibly draining the performance of your PC with what I imagine is a particle simulation or particle system for the grass and the foliage, but very nice. Some experimentation with stuff that you have presumably learned on your own, so good work. Rihanna, some sterling work here. Again, beautiful contrast between the surfaces, the shiny leather versus the matte floorboards. Excellent work. Really nice lighting. The lighting behind the TV, come on, fantastic. Great work. Attention to detail, really nice. I like this a lot. Like, I'm trying not to have favorites, but no, I'm only joking. Of course, I don't have favorites. You're all important. Casper, I think, yep. Again, nice contrast in textures, some different textures on the buildings here, so a little bit of contrast there. Slightly blurry one on the, is that an HDRI we've got in the background rather than a texture? It looks like it's an HDRI for the lighting. So we've got two sort of different angles on this from the back, presumably. So very nice. Remember, these are just drafts, so there's always room for, I love the detail of the wheelie bins. That's excellent. This is what I want to see, is the odd, you know, little Easter egg, the little sort of detail. That's what we're searching for, isn't it? These are just drafts, so eventually a bit more detail would be great. So if you've watched my video on texturing the brick, or Ian Hubert's videos, you'll see him doing the same sort of thing where you can texture an object and then go back in and model. So like maybe bringing out some loop cuts and bringing out or setting back some of these windows and these areas here where you've got the drop shadows, a few loop cuts, a few extrusions, and that will be kicking. Really nice foliage as well, really nice trees. Good. Very slightly uniform, very slightly repetitive, the trees, but you know, you've got to balance that up with performance issues. So awesome work. Top view there as well. This is the other class. This is Harvey. Very nice. What I was saying was that he has done a great mattress and pillow. Maybe we could get a duvet. But yeah, good attempt on the sofa and the chair and stuff. Again, very nice lighting. I'm liking the trend that's been occurring here with the kind of the areas emitting light like that. Curtis did a good job. So we discussed triangulation. He did start off with these floating islands, and I don't know, I just think quads look a bit, especially if you're trying to go for something kind of random and craggy or jagged like that. The triangulation, which is just a modifier, you know, I demonstrated what I meant here. Not a brilliant example, but I think triangulation can work really well. So he gave it a try. I think a bit of smooth shading would be good, but this sort of thing I'm really enjoying. I'm sort of wondering what kind of character is going to inhabit this land, what sort of story is going to take place between these multiple islands. So we are beginning to build a world here. What is going to happen in this world? Philip, very intriguing. Again, beautiful contrast between the surfaces. So nice shiny metal versus the matte woods and the scratchy toolbox there in the background. Again, why does this exist? Why is there a chair in a dark basement with a crowbar and a toolbox? We're sort of starting to build the world and wonder what's going to happen here. That's what I like to see. Aaron from the other class, Star Wars-esque, more light emitting from surfaces. Difficult to know what the scale is. Presumably, if we had a human he would be sort of standing here, and this is like a little sort of pathway of some kind. It's difficult to see what's going on, but very nice use of materials and light. Awesome work. Great stuff here from Harry. Don't know if there's something strange happening with maybe a duplication of the table tennis table, but again, I'm sort of thinking we've got a nice bar. What's going to happen? Maybe a bit more attention to be placed on the different types of materials. Everything is sort of uniformly shiny. So, you know, maybe varying the surface. Is this meant to be shiny? Is this meant to be shiny? Could one of these, just little things like that, make all the difference. Brandon, excellent work on a really simple little island. I like hearing that it was essentially a happy accident after messing about with planes. And I think the quads on this island work really well because it is a bit more symmetrical and a bit more uniform. It's not quite as random and craggy. Lighting looks great. I love the variation in the angles of the trees like that, sort of combined with this symmetrical island. Can you see that? So we've got some simple contrast with the asymmetrical trees that are sort of bending at different angles versus that symmetrical island. Just works really, really nicely. I like this, like it, like where it's going. Banging on about triangulation. Michael, beautiful work here. I was slightly concerned about the shiny foliage on these low poly trees, but these kind of fir trees, these kind of evergreens, quite often a little bit shiny, the needles, aren't they? I was asking him about how he did the toadstools and whether he'd done some texture painting. He informed me that he'd been adding little white spheres in there, which has worked really well. Again, lots of detail. Is that an owl? Really? Is that an owl sitting on a branch there? Are these magical fireflies? And is there something glowing inside the tree trunk? So lots of detail to feast your eyes on there. Beautiful work from Michael, and the moon in the background. Very nice. How to get out of this. Owen from the other class, something Dark Souls-like. Some kind of dungeon. Very atmospheric lighting. Presumably has been experimenting with bump maps and certainly textures, but we do have some variation in the surface levels there, so presumably a bit of experimentation with bump maps going on. Yeah, beautiful. I like how it's kind of eerily quiet and deserted, and I'm sort of thinking I'm wondering what sort of characters we're going to see inhabiting this. There's Kirsty's original islands before the triangulation. James, some nice work here. I was slightly concerned about what's happening with this tree. The other trees look beautiful. They look really nice. There's some nice modeling happening there, which has created some really nice shadows. I'm not quite sure why, if that is intentional on this one. But yeah, really nice. Slightly uniform and kind of randomly placed plants, flowers here. Maybe you could have a little bed of flowers somewhere. Maybe think about, you've kind of started to divide this up into zones. You've got the picnic benches and the rocks and the tree trunk. Maybe a little flower bed might work. But yeah, I like it, like the roots at the bottom of the tree like that. That's a nice detail. And presumably an array modifier. Remember I talked about the array modifier when I showed you what I was doing when I was making assets, the sci-fi assets, using the array modifier to duplicate an object. If you've got a fence post like this, just use the array modifier. And the street lamps, of course, let's keep those street lamps coming. More street lamps, Mitch. Lovely low poly design. I really enjoyed these. Now, this is an occasion where repetition works really well. When it sort of matches the style of the artwork, some repetition and uniform can look great. I think it's a funny one to balance, but you know, we've got the very similar buildings repeated, but because they're sort of repeated on a sort of grid layout, and I think one of the other screenshots actually shows the grid layout, and the street lamps repeated like that across the grid layout, it works really well. I think repetition can work beautifully. We talked about that in during our graphic design project, repetition. So working very well. Again, heartily looking forward to seeing what kind of character is going to fit in with this environment. I'd like to see him strolling down that pavement. It's very good. Tom P, I like in the more of the emission, the light emitting, and you can see contrast in surfaces here from these kind of matte hills versus the shiny ones. The same with the rocks. A bit of contrast in the surfaces there. Danny was interested in what was going on inside this environment. I think she mentioned she's going to have fish swimming about. I thought that was a really interesting take on these floating islands, to have a sort of presumably some kind of glass, fiberglass or perspex encased aquarium there. Beautiful, and some really nice details in the environment itself, a little bridge and the contrasting colors. Very nice. Again, maybe think about the specular settings on the materials of these. They're all quite shiny, but I think it actually works quite well in this instance. Norton, some beautiful concept art, all really nicely presented here like this. Front rendered view, side view, rendered from outside even. With these random assets positioned on the surfaces there. Yeah, very good. I can see this progressing very nicely. A little interior environment, more architectural visualization, ArcViz, and he's going to make an outdoor environment for a bit of variety. Loads of stuff to look at. Brad, again, I'm thinking this is very intriguing. What's going to happen here? What's taking place in this photographic studio? I liked how he just built it around the file he submitted for his original 3 assets. They're still sitting in exactly the same position they were in the asset submission. That's pretty cool. And although it's not a street lamp, we do have a standing lamp, so the theme continues. Great. I think that was it. This is what I really like to see. By the way, we got the go-ahead from SLT, from senior management, to continue using Discord as long as we do it responsibly. I will make an announcement on the thread at some point about that, but I made a video. I had to pitch it and why it's been valuable educationally. So as long as we continue to use it responsibly, it was this kind of thing that really sold it. This idea of people asking questions, and you know, Callista here sharing what she'd done, even going in as far as a screenshot to demonstrate the process that she'd taken to create that umbrella. All that kind of stuff, the asking questions, the sharing the work, especially in this visual manner, embedded within a thread like this. This is what I think is really creating value in using this platform. So, right, let's pause there, and I'll talk to you about the task that we should be doing today, if I can work out how to stop the recording.